Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And we've got some low tier fun for you today, courtesy of Ad Mortem Inimicus here. I think we're just going to call him Morty. And yes, British battleship. You could argue that it's actually Turkish, since, well, they paid for it. You could also argue that it's Brazilian, since they ordered it. But it ended up in the Royal Navy. This ship has quite a story attached. It was originally ordered by the Brazilians, but then the bottom fell out of their economy and they could no longer afford to pay for it. So the Turks had a bit of a whip round, literally. Schools, hospitals, factories were all donating to buy it for the Turkish Navy. And then the First World War broke out, and the First Sea Lord at the time, Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, decided that he really didn't like the idea of the Turks getting their hands on any battleships. So, not to put it too finely, Britain kind of stole it. The Turks were not happy, and it was probably one of, certainly not the factor, that led to the Turks joining the First World War, and not on our side. Oops. And the thing is, the ship wasn't even that good. It's got a lot of guns, 14 of them in 7 twin turrets, but they're only 12-inch in calibre. And it really just had too many guns to be practical. I mean, every one of those guns needs to have ammunition hoists, it needs to have ammunition handling facilities, it needs to have magazines. I mean, where do you put everything else that you need in a battleship? It just wasn't a very good ship. And it's not a very good ship here in World of Warships either. But I love it anyway. Clearly I'm going to have to explain. This is not actually a TOG 2 situation. Actually, I suppose it kind of is, because the TOG 2 is a terrible tank with an amazing gun. Actually, no, this isn't a TOG 2 situation. You know what, I'll just explain. As the bots all slaughter each other, because this is a low-tier battle, tier 5. So there are a lot of bots in play. But don't worry, Morty isn't going to be farming kills on bots in this battle, far from it. But while the bots are all suiciding into each other at the start of the match, let me just explain what I mean when I say I love this ship, even though it isn't very good. Because I've often gone on record saying that there are certain ships in the game that are actually kind of bad ships. Ships like the Kitakazi, for example. Or the Farragut's another good example down at tier 6. Neither of which are particularly good destroyers. I mean, they're certainly not fast, they're not particularly stealthy. But they have amazing guns. And that one fact alone makes them fun to play, and also very effective. At the other end of the scale, you've got ships that are great. I mean, they're fast, they're well armoured, they've got good secondaries, they've got a great range of consumables. Maybe they also come with torpedoes. The problem is the guns really suck, and so they're absolutely awful to play, regardless of how good the ship itself might be. The poster child for this faction, of course, has always been the German tier 7 battleship, the Gneisenau. The Gneisenau is not actually as bad as it used to be. Its guns have received a couple of buffs over the years. They're still not amazing, but they're no longer completely terrible. The Agincourt doesn't really fall into either category, because the ship itself isn't good. And the guns are kind of bad as well. And yet I love it anyway. Because while the guns are bad, it does have 14 of them. And as a certain communist Russian dictator, whose name we can actually say on YouTube, unlike a certain fascist German dictator whose name we can't, is often quoted as saying, quantity has a quality all of its own. And the other thing that the Agincourt has, in spades, is very, very good secondaries. I mean, let's not get carried away here. It is just tier 5. You know, we're not talking the USS Massachusetts here or anything on the Grosser Kurfürst. But by the standards of tier 5, the secondaries on the Agincourt are best in class. It has 30 of them. And while 10 of them are just 76mm guns and are kind of bad, and they're only really there for setting fires, because they're certainly not going to actually damage anything, they're too low caliber. 20 of the secondaries on this thing are 152mm guns, which absolutely are going to damage things, as well as set an awful lot of fires. And even the 76mm secondaries at tier 5, they're not that bad. I mean, they'd be completely useless for anything other than setting fires at tier 10, but this is tier 5. They can actually damage same tier and lower tier destroyers. And they only have a 2.7 second reload. Oh, the Königsberg over there just made a serious error of judgment. And it's a player. So this isn't just a dumb decision made by a bot. He was out of spotting range, he was undetected, and then he revealed his position with 2,700 hit points by shooting at a pair of full health targets. That did not end up working out very well for him. But it did end up working out very well for Morty, because that is his first kill, and yep, it was a player. There are still plenty of bots in play, however. In fact, most of the casualties, as you'd expect, and as you'd hope, most, but not all of the casualties thus far, the Königsberg was by no means the first, but most of the casualties thus far have been the bots. Like the Thur attacker over here. That thing has torpedoes, doesn't it? You see what I mean about the guns? Effectively point blank range, broadside Thur attacker, nothing but over penetrations. The Agincourt's guns are not very good. And that's being generous. I mean, they're only 12-inch in caliber, the accuracy is awful, the reload is terrible. I mean, it's 12-inch guns with a 36-second reload, but it does have 14 of them. It very much falls into the throw enough shit at the wall and some of it's going to stick category. It just doesn't throw shit at the wall very often, but when it does, it throws a lot of shit. Also, the turret placements aren't bad either, they're all centerline mounted. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Ein Minuten bitte. There's a destroyer in that smoke screen. A kamikaze just torpedoed the Monty over there. Okay. Right, the Thur attacker got its torpedoes away because, of course, Japanese cruiser has torpedoes. It's taken out the Agano, but it's just bots killing bots. He knows he doesn't have to worry about torpedoes from the Thur attacker. The Agano's taken care of that for him. But he is going to have to worry about torpedoes from the kamikaze, because I think that thing only has something like a 40-second torpedo reload. Possibly less. So, he's reloaded high explosive. He's swinging the guns around. He's focusing the secondaries on the Thur attacker. The Thur attacker is actually a very, very good tier 5 cruiser. But it doesn't have enough hit points left, and it's not going to reload the torpedoes in time. Come on, where's the kamikaze? There it is! There may just be 12-inch guns, but there are 14 of them, and that's just a destroyer. Boom, headshot. Actually, double strike. You're getting a double commentary here, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's actually using me as the captain of his Agincourt. So when he scored that double strike, you actually got the, well, now you're just showing off voice line. What can I say? Jingles captain is best captain. Well, the enemy team just sank the other friendly Agincourt, so they've equalised the kills. Let me just quickly check the range of his secondaries here. Yeah, he's gone for a secondary spec. 8.3 kilometre shooting range on the secondaries. By default, it's only 5.5. Unfortunately, because he loaded the high explosive to deal with the kamikaze, he still has the high explosive loaded for shooting at that perfect broadside enemy Agincourt. What can I say? It's a popular ship. There's a few of them in this battle. 14 shots fired. Actually, 6 of them hit. You know, considering the range and, well, what ship this is, that's actually not bad accuracy for the Agincourt. He did set one fire, but, well, the enemy Agincourt has damage controlled it and is using repair party. Armour piercing. That many armour piercing hits would probably have sunk him if he just thought to switch from the high explosive to the armour piercing after sinking the enemy destroyer. But he did not. And I can't really characterise this as anything but a mistake, because on the one hand he's making exceptionally good use of the island here to ensure that he is not fighting more than one of the 3 enemy battleships at a time, and he's also able to get most of these shots off without being spotted. So that's great, but he's still reloading the high explosive. And the high explosive on this thing is, unless you're shooting at extremely light cruisers or destroyers, it's really bad. 12-inch high explosive, even British 12-inch high explosive, only has 76mm of penetration. It's pretty terrible. And don't forget, it's a 36-second reload. But like I said, this is not a very good ship. There are not many battleships in the game at any tier that have a reload longer than 36 seconds, and those that do generally have hoofing, dirty, great big 18-inch guns to compensate. I'm looking at things like the USS Vermont here. It's not something that you can say about the Agincourt. That's the only other player left on his team, by the way, the Le Doir, French destroyer. Still, okay, now he's switched to the armour piercing. This is not going to kill the enemy Agincourt. I mean, it's a double fire, but it's been instantly damage controlled. Fortunately, the Agincourt has just shot at the Ladois, because Morty's given just as much broadside to the enemy Agincourt as the enemy Agincourt is given to him, but, well, Morty still has all of his hit points. The enemy Agincourt does not. And now he's once again managed to make excellent use of island cover. He's gone undetected. The friendly destroyer is still spotting the enemy Agincourt, and eventually that armor piercing is going to reload. And this is really what he should have done. There it is, the first time. Here comes the Iron Duke. I should stress, by the way, before we all get too critical, myself included, this is actually Morty's first ever game in this ship. So he doesn't know how bad the high explosive is. British high explosive tends to have a reputation for being very good, and generally British battleship high explosive is very good, just not on this ship. In fact, if I recall correctly, when the Iron Duke was first introduced with the rest of the British battleships, its high explosive was so good they had to nerf it. And it's still pretty spicy. But it's mostly the secondaries that are doing the heavy lifting here. There's the Confederate Award, there's the High Caliber Award, and have you noticed that even though he is sailing into a crossfire between two enemy battleships, he still pretty much has full health? It's because there's a destroyer with him, and no battleship captain with a choice of a destroyer at point blank range or another battleship is ever going to shoot at the battleship as long as the destroyer's still alive. The Ladois managed to miss the Iron Duke with every torpedo that he launched. Morty had to raise his sights there because he was never going to penetrate the hull of the Iron Duke at that kind of angle, so he went for a raking shot through the superstructure. Wasn't enough to finish him. He's focusing the secondaries, angling against the USS Texas, who was almost certainly also shooting at the Ladois, which has just been sunk by the Iron Duke, so they're all going to be reloading and shooting at Morty now. But the Agincourt is surprisingly good at angling against incoming armor piercing due to a 102mm icebreaker bow. That Iron Duke is taking a savage beating. I think Morty's decided, yeah, he's actually turned to look at where the Texas is. He's going to need to angle better than that. He's going to leave the Iron Duke down to the secondaries. The Britannia has finally turned up, but it's a bot. It's really not going to have any impact on the outcome of this battle. He has taken down the Iron Duke. The fires that the secondaries were setting finished him off. There's the Witherer Award, and now it's just him and the Texas. The Iron Duke was his 5th kill. That was the Kraken Unleashed, and 4 of his 5 kills thus far have been against players, not bots. His only bot kill were the secondaries, finishing off the Furataka. I was thinking he might want to go for a ram here, because he still has a ship left alive on his team. Even if he and the Texas die here, he would still win. And it looks like the Texas is going for it in what looks like a bit of an act of desperation, because he will not win if he dies by ramming the Agincourt. But I guess he figures he's lost anyway, and he just wants to try to get a little bit more damage out of it before these secondaries make even more of a mess. Although it's difficult to see how they could. That Texas is not having a good game. He has, of course, got the armor piercing loaded, and even these guns at this range are going to find it extremely difficult to miss. There were only 6 players on the enemy team in this battle. Morty sank 5 of them. This ship is slow. Aside from the icebreaker bow, it's not particularly well armoured. Its guns have terrible high explosive shells, and the armour piercing shells are too low caliber to have meaningful amounts of penetration at anything other than point blank range. The reload is awful, the accuracy is terrible, but it's got a lot of them, and the secondaries are excellent. Honestly, that'll do. This is one of my most fun favourite ships to play. And based on the result of this, Morty's very first game in this ship, I suspect he probably shares that opinion. And I hope you all enjoyed watching him discover just exactly what a secret pleasure HMS Agincourt is, because that is it for today. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.